Good morning, students. I am Dr.R.Suganya, Department of Computer Science with Cybersecurity. Today we are going to see about the exception handling in Python programming. Exceptions. While writing a program, we often end up making some errors. There are many types of errors that can occur in a program. The error caused by writing an improper syntax is termed syntax error or parsing error. These are also called as compile time errors. Errors can also occur at runtime, and these runtime errors are known as exceptions. These are various types of runtime errors in Python. Let us look at a few examples. When a file we try to open does not exist, we get a file not found error. When a division by 0 happens, we get a 0 division error. When a module we are trying to import does not exist, we get an error. Python creates an exception object for every occurrence of these runtime errors. The user must write a piece of code that can handle the error. If it is not capable of handling the error, the program prints a trace back to that error along with the details of why the error has occurred. Example, compile time error syntax is a equal to 3 if a is greater than 4. So it is one of the invalid syntax. So the error shows about syntax error because there is a problem with the syntax if statement starts with a semicolon. So here it is one of the 0 division error. So here integer division or model by 0. We try to divide 5 by 0, so the interpreter prints 0 division error. Next is built-in exceptions, we can say, and one another type is handling exceptions. So any error prone statement can raise exception. There are various built-in exceptions in Python that can be raised when the corresponding errors occur. The full list of built-in exceptions in Python, here we have assertion error, attribute error, end of file error, floating point error, import error, index error. So assertion error means it rises in case of failure of the assert statement. Attribute error rise in case of failure of attribute reference or assignment. End of file error, which means raised when there is no input from either the raw input or input functions and the end of file is reached. Floating point error, where floating point calculation fails. Import error rise when an import statement fails. Index error rise when an index is not found in a sequence. Key error rise when the specified key is not found in the dictionary. Keyboard interrupt rise when the user interrupts program execution, usually by pressing Ctrl+C. Name error rise when an identifier is not found in the local or global namespace. Not implemented error rise when an abstract method that needs to be implemented in an inherited class is not actually implemented. Runtime error rise when a generated error does not fall into any category. Value error rise when an built-in function for a data type has a valid type of arguments but the arguments have invalid value specified. Handling exceptions. Whenever an exception occurs in Python, it stops a current process and passes it to the calling process until it is handled. If there is no piece of code in our program that can handle the exception, then the program will crash. So for example, assume that a function x calls a function y, which in turn calls a function z, and an exception occurs in z. If this exception is not handled in z itself, then an exception is passed to y and then to x. If this exception is not handled, then an error will be displayed and our program will suddenly halt. So we can use like try except with no exception, except with multiple exceptions, and try finally. Try except. So Python provides a try statement for handling exceptions. An operation in the program that can cause the exception is placed in the try class while the block of code that handles the exception is placed in the except class. The block of code for handling the exception is written by the user and it is for him to decide which operations he wants to perform after the exception has been identified. Tries except syntax. The operation which can cause exceptions here. If there is exception 1, we have to execute this. If exception 2, we have to execute the other statements. Else, if no exception occur, we have to execute another statement. try except here, try when here we have the example like try to file to open one of the file, then to write it like hello Python, and input error, cannot find file or read data, else print content returned successfully and close the file. In the given example, we are trying to open a file test.txt with write access mode and want to write to that file. We have added try and except blocks. The exception is handled by the except block and the following statement is printed. It is written successfully. Next is except with no exceptions. Yes. So here try, the statement can cause exception, except if exception occurs, execute. Else we have to execute another statement. Except with no exceptions. And then except with multiple exceptions. So try the operation which can cause exception here, except and else. Except with multiple exceptions, and try finally, try the operation which can cause exception here, finally this will always execute. Here we have the example. Keywords try exceptions, built-in exceptions, handling exceptions, try except no exceptions, except multiple exceptions, finally. So errors can also occur at runtime, and these runtime errors is known as exceptions. So there are various built-in exceptions in Python, and if there is no piece of code in our program that can handle the exception, then the program will crash. So we have few MQs that you can go through. Thank you.